The rain-slicked streets of Portland, Oregon gleamed under the amber glow of streetlights. As Evelyn Carter's sleek black Ace SUV pulled into the parking lot of the Rose City Community Center, the air was thick with the scent of wet pine and coffee from a nearby roastery, a quintessential Portland evening in late fall. Evelyn, 37, CEO of Pinnacle Tech, adjusted her tailored navy blazer, her hazel eyes scanning her phone for the 20th time that hour. Emails from her board of directors flooded her inbox, each one marked urgent, each one a reminder of the empire she'd built from the ashes of her late husband's dreams. She was late again for the charity gala. Her company was sponsoring a glitzy affair meant to showcase Pinnacle Tech's commitment to the community. But her mind wasn't on the gala. It was on her twin sons, Liam and Noah, 7 years old and deaf since birth, who were supposed to be with their nanny tucked away in a quiet corner of the center. She'd left strict instructions: keep them entertained, keep them out of trouble. Evelyn pushed open the heavy glass doors, her heels clicking sharply against the polished concrete floor. Her presence commanding even in the bustling lobby filled with donors in tuxedos and glittering dresses. The community center was alive with chatter, clinking glasses, and the soft hum of a jazz quartet. But Evelyn's focus was singular. She needed to check on her boys before delivering her keynote speech. She navigated the crowd, nodding curtly at familiar faces, her polished exterior hiding the exhaustion of a mother stretched too thin. The hallway leading to the back rooms was quieter, the noise of the gala fading into a distant murmur. Evelyn's steps quickened as she approached the kitchen where the nanny had promised to keep Liam and Noah occupied with coloring books or snacks. She expected to find them sitting quietly, maybe bored, their small faces lit by the glow of an iPad. Instead, as she pushed open the swinging door, a scene stopped her cold. In the warm, fluorescent-lit kitchen, her boys were perched on stools at a stainless steel counter, their small hands flying through the air with a fluidity she'd never seen. Their faces, usually so guarded, so distant, were alight with silent laughter, their eyes sparkling like the Willamette River under sunlight. Across from them, a man in a faded gray custodian's uniform crouched low, his broad shoulders hunched to meet their eye level. His hands, rough from years of scrubbing floors and fixing leaks, moved with surprising grace, signing words with a rhythm that matched the boy's energy. He was older, maybe 40, with salt and pepper hair peeking out from under a worn baseball cap and a faint smile that carried a quiet strength. This was James Sullivan, the community center's custodian, though Evelyn didn't know his name yet. She stood frozen, her hand still on the door as Liam signed something rapid and playful, his fingers shaping the word rocket. Noah giggled, his shoulders shaking, and signed back, boom, his hands mimicking an explosion. James laughed softly, his own hands responding with an exaggerated whoa, earning another round of silent giggles from the twins. Evelyn's chest tightened. Her boys, who barely responded to their expensive tutors, who retreated into themselves at home, were alive in a way she hadn't seen since before their father Mark died 3 years ago. She should have felt joy relief even, but instead a sharp pang of inadequacy stabbed at her. She was their mother, the one who'd spent thousands on specialists, speech therapists, and private signing instructors, yet here they were connecting with a stranger, a custodian, no less, in a way they never had with her. Her throat burned as she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the warmth like a winter gust. What exactly is going on here? The words came out sharper than she intended, her CEO instincts kicking in, the ones that silenced boardrooms and intimidated competitors. James turned slowly, his hands pausing mid-sign, his hazel eyes meeting hers with a calm that unsettled her. The boys froze their laughter, fading their small hands, dropping to their sides. Liam's eyes widened with a flicker of worry, while Noah's lips pressed into a tight line, as if bracing for trouble. James straightened, wiping his palms on his uniform, his expression a mix of respect and faint guilt. "Miss Carter, I'm sorry if I overstepped," he said, his voice low and steady, the kind of voice that could soothe a storm. "The boys asked me to show them a few signs. Just some fun stuff, rockets, dinosaurs. I didn't mean any harm." Evelyn's jaw tightened, her arms crossing over her chest, the silk of her blazer catching the light. "You're the custodian, correct?" she asked. Her tone clipped as if addressing an employee who'd forgotten his place. James nodded, unfazed. "Yes, ma'am. James Sullivan. I work here at the center." Before Evelyn could respond, Liam slid off his stool and ran to her, his small hands tugging at her sleeve. His fingers moved frantically, signing with an urgency she hadn't seen in months. "He understands us, Mom. He's fun." Noah joined him, his movements slower but deliberate, spelling out, "We like him. He listens." The words hit Evelyn like a slap. Listens. The tutors she'd hired with their Ivy League degrees and exorbitant fees had never elicited this response. They'd drilled signs into the boys with clinical precision, but there was no warmth, no connection. Yet here was this man, in a worn uniform with calloused hands, making her sons' faces light up, like they hadn't since Mark used to sing them to sleep. Evelyn's composure wavered, but she forced it back into place, her voice cool. "They have professional tutors for this. I've invested thousands to ensure they get the best instruction. Why are they listening to you?" The question was more accusation than curiosity, her pride bristling at the idea that a custodian could succeed where her carefully curated resources had failed. James's eyes softened, not with defiance, but with something deeper, something that made Evelyn feel exposed. "Sometimes, Miss Carter," he said, his voice steady but gentle. "It's not about the money. It's about showing up, really seeing them." The words landed heavier than she expected, slicing through her defenses. She wanted to argue, to remind him of his place, but Liam and Noah were watching her, their eyes pleading, their hands still poised, as if ready to sign more. For a moment, she saw herself through their eyes. A mother who was always rushing, always distracted, always one email away from being fully present. The kitchen, with its gleaming counters and faint smell of lemon cleaner, felt suddenly too small, the air thick with a truth she wasn't ready to face. James crouched again, his hands moving slowly to sign to the boys. "It's okay, guys. Your mom's just looking out for you." His smile was small but genuine, and the twins relaxed, their shoulders loosening. Liam signed back. "Don't go," his fingers trembling slightly. Noah echoed, "Stay, please." Evelyn's throat tightened, her carefully manicured nails digging into her palms. She wanted to snap, to reassert control, to remind everyone that she was Evelyn Carter, the woman who'd turned Pinnacle Tech into a household name. But the sight of her sons, their faces bright with a hope she hadn't given them, stopped her. She glanced at James, who was watching the boys with a tenderness that made her chest ache. "Why do you know sign language, Meister Sullivan?" she asked, her voice softer now, almost reluctant. James's expression shifted, a shadow passing over his face. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "My sister Sarah. She was deaf, grew up in a small town outside Salem, no programs, no fancy tutors. If I wanted to talk to her, I had to learn. She passed 5 years ago. Teaching your boys tonight, it reminded me of her." The twins' eyes widened, and Liam signed, "Sorry." His small hands careful and sincere. Noah mirrored him, his fingers spelling the same word. James shook his head gently, signing back, "Don't be." Just keep signing. That's what she'd want. Evelyn felt a lump in her throat, her mind flashing to Mark, to the nights he'd spent signing lullabies to the boys when they were toddlers. She'd buried that grief under contracts and deadlines, but here in this ordinary kitchen, it surfaced raw and unbidden. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, the familiar chime of a board member's call, but for once she ignored it. The boys tugged at James's sleeves, signing Dinosaur again, their faces breaking into grins as he played along, roaring silently with exaggerated claws. Evelyn watched, her heart caught between awe and envy. She was the CEO, the provider, the one who'd clawed her way to the top, to give her sons everything, except, it seemed, the one thing they needed most: someone who truly saw them. She cleared her throat, forcing her voice to steady. "Mr. Sullivan, your job is to maintain this facility, not to involve yourself with my children." The words felt hollow even as she said them, her authority a flimsy shield against the truth unfolding before her. James nodded, respectful but unshaken. "Understood, Miss Carter. But I didn't seek this out. They did. And I couldn't just walk away." His words weren't a challenge, but they stung all the same. Evelyn looked at Liam and Noah, their hands still moving, their eyes darting between her and James. For the first time in years, she felt out of place in her own world, a stranger in the lives of her own sons. The gala waited, her speech loomed, but as she turned to leave, Liam ran to her, his small hand grabbing hers. He signed, "Stay, Mom," his eyes wide and hopeful. Noah joined him, signing, "Please." Evelyn's breath caught. She wanted to stay, to learn to be part of this moment, but the weight of her title, her empire, pulled her back. She squeezed their hands gently, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have to go, but I'll be back soon." As she walked away, the sound of their silent laughter lingered, a reminder of what she'd been too busy to hear. The Portland skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Evelyn Carter's penthouse, a sleek fortress of glass and steel perched atop one of the city's highest buildings. The Willamette River snaked below its surface, catching the pale morning light. But Evelyn barely noticed. She sat at her minimalist dining table, a cup of black coffee cooling untouched as she scrolled through emails on her laptop. At 37, she was the youngest CEO of Pinnacle Tech, a woman who'd turned a fledgling startup into a tech giant after her husband Mark's death 3 years ago. Her days were a blur of board meetings, investor calls, and product launches, each one a brick in the empire she'd built to shield herself from grief. But last night's scene at the Rose City Community Center gnawed at her. Her twin sons, Liam and Noah, 7 years old and deaf since birth, had been laughing, truly laughing, with James Sullivan, a custodian of all people. Their hands had danced with signs she barely understood, their faces alive in a way she hadn't seen in years. Evelyn's fingers tightened around her coffee mug, the ceramic warm against her palms. She'd spent thousands on tutors, specialists, the best programs money could buy. Yet her boys had connected with a man in a faded uniform who mopped floors for a living. The thought stung a sharp jab to her carefully constructed pride. In the quiet of the penthouse, the only sound was the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional ping of her phone. Liam and Noah were still asleep, their nanny due to arrive soon to take them to school. Evelyn glanced at the clock, 6:45 a.m., and pushed her chair back, her silk robe brushing against her legs as she stood. She needed to focus, to prepare for a critical board meeting at Pinnacle Tech's downtown headquarters. But as she walked past the boys' room, she paused, her hand hovering over the door handle. She pictured their small faces bright with joy as they signed Rocket and Dinosaur with James. She hadn't seen them that happy since Mark used to sit cross-legged on their bedroom floor, signing silly stories about pirates and dragons. Grief, long buried under spreadsheets and contracts, clawed at her chest. She shook her head, forcing the memory away, and headed to her office, a glass-walled sanctuary filled with awards and framed magazine covers proclaiming her Tech's Iron Lady. Work was her anchor, her control. She couldn't afford to lose it now. At Pinnacle Tech's headquarters, a gleaming tower of concrete and chrome, Evelyn strode through the open-plan office, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Employees parted like a sea, their murmurs fading as she passed. Her assistant Clara trailed behind, rattling off the day's scheduled board meeting at 9, investor call at 11, lunch with the mayor at 1. Evelyn nodded absently, her mind still in that community center kitchen. She'd looked into James Sullivan's file after last night, a standard background check for a low-level employee. No mention of sign language, no hint of a deaf sister. Just a 40-year-old man with a high school diploma, a clean record, and a history of odd jobs before landing at the community center. Why hadn't he mentioned his skills? And why did her boys trust him so easily? The questions gnawed at her as she entered the boardroom where a dozen executives in tailored suits awaited. The agenda was a new AI product launch, a multi-million-dollar bet on Pinnacle's future. But Evelyn's focus drifted. She saw Liam's hands signing, "He understands us." Mom and Noah's quiet plea, "We like him." Her jaw tightened. She was their mother. She should be the one they turned to. After the meeting, which ended with her shutting down a heated debate with a single raised brow, Evelyn retreated to her office. She pulled up the boys' latest progress reports from their tutors, a prestigious firm charging $200 an hour. The notes were clinical. Liam shows moderate improvement in vocabulary. Noah remains resistant to structured lessons. No mention of laughter, no hint of the spark she'd seen last night. Frustration bubbled up, and she dialed the nanny Maria, who answered in her usual cheerful tone. "Are the boys okay?" Evelyn asked, her voice sharper than intended. Maria hesitated. "They're fine, Miss Carter, but they've been talking about Mr. Sullivan all morning. They want to go back to the community center after school." Evelyn's grip on the phone tightened. "They have tutoring at 4. Make sure they're there." She hung up before Maria could respond, her mind racing. She couldn't let a custodian upend her carefully planned system. The boys needed structure expertise, not impromptu lessons from a man who scrubbed floors. That afternoon, Evelyn made a decision. She called the director of an elite signing academy in Seattle, one with a waiting list and a reputation for turning deaf children into fluent communicators. "Money isn't an issue," she told the director, her voice firm. "I want Liam and Noah enrolled by next week." The director promised a tailored program complete with one-on-one instructors and immersive workshops. Evelyn felt a flicker of relief. This was what her boys needed: professionals, not a janitor with a sob story. But when she picked the boys up from school, their faces told a different story. Liam's shoulders slumped as he climbed into the SUV, and Noah stared out the window, his hands still in his lap. "We want to see James." Liam signed, his movements slow and deliberate. Noah added, "He teaches us fun stuff. Tutors are boring." Evelyn's chest tightened. "You'll like the new program," she said aloud, knowing they couldn't hear her tone, but hoping her smile would reassure them. Their frowns deepened, and she felt a familiar pang of failure. That evening, against her better judgment, Evelyn drove to the community center. The gala was over, but the building was still alive with after-school programs, kids painting murals, teens playing basketball in the gym. She found Liam and Noah in the art room, sitting at a table covered in butcher paper and markers. James was there, kneeling beside them, his hands signing the word "blue" as Noah pointed to a crayon. The boys' faces lit up when they saw her, but their hands kept moving, signing to James about their drawing, a chaotic masterpiece of dinosaurs and spaceships. Evelyn stood in the doorway, unnoticed, her arms crossed tightly. The warmth in the room felt foreign, a contrast to the sterile perfection of her penthouse. James glanced up, his eyes meeting hers, and he stood quickly brushing marker dust off his uniform. "Miss Carter," he said, his voice cautious but warm. "Didn't expect to see you here." She stepped forward, her heels loud in the quiet room. "I didn't expect to be here," she said, her tone clipped. "But my sons seem to think you're their new teacher." James's expression didn't falter. "They're good kids," he signed, as he spoke, including the boys in the conversation. "They just want someone to meet them where they are." Liam tugged at James's sleeve, signing, "Show Mom the dinosaur." Noah chimed in, his hands rapid. "It's a T-Rex." James hesitated, then signed back, playing along with an exaggerated roar that made the boys giggle. Evelyn's throat burned. She wanted to be the one making them laugh, but her hands felt clumsy, her knowledge of sign language limited to basic phrases she'd learned years ago and forgotten in the chaos of her career. "I've enrolled them in a new program," she said, her voice colder than she meant. "In Seattle. The best instructors in the country. They don't need this." She gestured vaguely at the art room, the crayons, James. The boys' faces fell. Liam signed, "No. We like James." Noah's hands trembled as he added, "Don't make us go." Evelyn's heart sank, but she held her ground, her pride a steel wall. "It's for your future," she said, signing awkwardly, her fingers stiff. James watched, his eyes softening with something like understanding, but he didn't back down. "Miss Carter," he said quietly, "they're not resisting because they don't want to learn. They're resisting because no one's listening to what they love. Try signing T-Rex with them. See what happens." He stepped back, giving her space. Evelyn hesitated, her hands hovering, then clumsily formed the sign for dinosaur, copying Noah's earlier movement. The boy's eyes widened, and Liam signed back. "Good job." "Mom?" Noah clapped silently, a small smile breaking through. For a moment, the room felt lighter, but Evelyn's pride surged back. She couldn't let a custodian teach her how to parent. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, Mr. Sullivan," she said, her voice tight. "But I know what's best for my sons." She turned to the boys, signing, "Let's go home." They followed reluctantly, their hands still signing T-Rex to each other as they walked to the car. James watched them leave, his expression unreadable, but his words from the night before echoed in Evelyn's mind. It's about showing up, really seeing them. As she drove through Portland's rain-soaked streets, the boys silent in the back seat, she felt the cracks in her carefully built facade deepen. She'd built an empire, but her sons were slipping through her fingers, drawn to a man who gave them what she hadn't in years' time: attention and a language they could share. For the first time, Evelyn wondered if all her success meant nothing if she couldn't reach the two people who mattered most. The autumn sun dipped low over Portland's Laurelhurst Park, casting golden streaks through the towering evergreens and across the duck pond, where ripples caught the light like scattered coins. Evelyn Carter stood at the edge of the grassy field, her navy coat pulled tight against the October chill, her hazel eyes fixed on her twin sons Liam and Noah as they darted across the grass, their small hands signing furiously to each other. At 7 years old, the boys moved with an energy that seemed to defy the quiet of their deafness, their laughter silent but vivid in their wide smiles and sparkling eyes. Beside them, James Sullivan, the community center custodian, jogged lightly to keep up, his worn work boots sinking into the damp earth. His hands rough from years of manual labor-shaped signs, with a fluid grace that still surprised Evelyn's signs for Treebird Run. The boys mirrored him, their fingers quick and eager, occasionally stumbling, but always laughing. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. She'd come here reluctantly, persuaded by Liam and Noah's insistent pleas to join them for what they called signing time with James. It was Saturday, a rare day off from her relentless schedule at Pinnacle Tech, and she'd almost canceled her phone buzzing with urgent emails about a delayed product launch. But the memory of her son's disappointed faces at the community center last week when she'd dismissed James's role in their lives had stopped her. For once, she'd silenced her phone and driven to the park. Evelyn's hands twitched at her sides, itching to check her messages to reclaim the control she wielded so effortlessly in boardrooms. At 37, she was used to commanding attention, her tailored presence and sharp mind-bending executives to her will. But here, in the open air with children chasing each other, and James guiding her sons through a language she barely knew, she felt out of place, exposed. She adjusted her scarf, her fingers brushing the soft cashmere, and took a tentative step toward the trio. Liam spotted her first, his face lighting up as he signed Mom's. Here, Noah turned his grin matching his brother's and waved her over with an exaggerated sweep of his hand. James glanced up, his hazel eyes calm but warm, and signed, "Glad you made it, Miss Carter." His voice followed low and steady as if he sensed her unease. "The boys wanted to show you something special today." Evelyn forced a smile, her lips tight. "I'm here," she said, her voice softer than usual, though she didn't sign, her hands still in her pockets. She hadn't practiced since that awkward moment in the art room when she'd clumsily signed Dinosaur and felt a flicker of connection with her sons. The memory both warmed and embarrassed her. She was Evelyn Carter Cuio, not a fumbling beginner. James knelt beside the boys, his cap casting a shadow over his weathered face. Ready, he signed, his hands deliberate. Liam and Noah nodded eagerly, their small backpacks bouncing as they ran to a nearby picnic table where a pile of colorful flashcards lay scattered. James had brought them homemade, Evelyn noticed, with hand-drawn pictures of animals and objects next to their sign language spellings. "We're working on a song," James explained, glancing at Evelyn. "Something my sister Sarah loved when we were kids." The boys picked it up fast. He signed as he spoke, including Liam and Noah, who watched with rapt attention. Evelyn's chest tightened at the mention of Sarah James's deaf sister, who'd passed away 5 years ago. She hadn't asked for more details, but the way James's voice softened when he spoke of her stirred something in Evelyn grief, perhaps for her late husband Mark, whose absence still lingered like a shadow she couldn't outrun. The boys tugged at James's sleeves, signing, "Start," with impatient grins. James laughed a low rumble and began signing the words to "You Are My Sunshine," his hands moving slowly so Evelyn could follow. Liam and Noah joined in, their fingers shaping each word with careful precision. "You are my sunshine." Their movements weren't perfect. Liam's sunshine was too sharp, Noah's happy, a bit sloppy, but their faces glowed with pride. Evelyn watched, her throat burning. She remembered Mark singing that song to the boys when they were toddlers, his hands clumsy but earnest as he tried to learn their language. She'd been too busy then, caught up in the early days of Pinnacle Tech, to join in. Now, standing in the park, she felt the weight of those missed moments. James paused, signing to the boys. "Show your mom?" Liam turned to Evelyn, his hands hesitant but clear. "Try it, Mom," Noah added. "It's easy." His eyes were hopeful, almost pleading, and Evelyn felt her defenses crumble. She stepped closer, her hands trembling as she pulled them from her pockets. "Okay," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She tried to mimic the sign for you, her fingers awkward, crossing in the wrong direction. Liam giggled silently, his shoulders shaking, and corrected her, his small hands guiding hers into the right shape. Noah clapped, signing. Good Evelyn's cheeks flushed, but the boy's encouragement warmed her a small spark in the cold hollow of her chest. James nodded, his smile subtle but approving. Not bad for a first try, he said, signing as he spoke. Keep going. They moved through the song again, Evelyn stumbling through each sign, her fingers stiff and uncoordinated. She was used to mastering challenges, coding algorithms, negotiating contracts, but this felt different, raw, and humbling. The boys cheered her on, their hands flying with praise, and for a moment, Evelyn forgot the emails piling up, the board meeting looming on Monday, the empire that defined her. As the sun sank lower, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, James suggested a break. The boys ran to the playground, signing swing and slide to each other as they climbed. Evelyn and James sat on the picnic table, the flashcards between them. She studied him, his worn flannel shirt and calloused hands, a stark contrast to her polished exterior. "Why do you do this?" she asked, suddenly, her voice sharper than she intended. "You're not their teacher. You're not even family. Why spend your time with them?" James leaned back, his gaze steady, as if he'd expected the question. "Because they asked," he said simply, signing the words out of habit. "When I was a kid, Sarah needed someone to talk to. No one else in our town bothered to learn her language. I saw the same look in your boys' eyes, like they're waiting for someone to show up. I couldn't ignore that." His words landed like stones, heavy and unyielding. Evelyn looked away, her eyes stinging. She'd seen that look too, but she'd been too busy, too consumed by her own grief and ambition to act on it. Her phone buzzed in her coat pocket, a reminder of the board meeting she'd promised to prepare for. She glanced at the screen, an urgent message from her CFO about budget overruns. Her instinct was to respond, to dive back into the safety of work. But Liam's voice, silent but clear in his signs, echoed in her mind. "Try it, Mom." She pressed decline, her heart racing at the unfamiliar choice. "Let's keep going," she said to James, her voice unsteady but determined. He nodded, calling the boys back. They ran over grass stains on their jeans and taught her the sign for happy, their small hands guiding hers. Evelyn's fingers fumbled, but she laughed a real laugh, not the practiced one she used in meetings. The boys beamed, signing, "You did it!" And for the first time in years, Evelyn felt like their mother, not just their provider. Later that week at the community center's art room, Evelyn surprised herself by showing up to another signing session. James was there, helping Liam and Noah create a poster for a school project, their hands signing ocean and fish as they drew. Evelyn hesitated in the doorway, her briefcase still in hand, but Noah spotted her and signed, "Mom, come draw." She set her bag down, her heels clicking as she joined them. James handed her a marker, his eyes crinkling with a quiet smile. "You're getting the hang of this," he said, signing, "Good job." Evelyn's pride flared. She wasn't used to being a beginner, but she pushed it aside, focusing on the boys' excitement. They taught her the sign for wave, their hands moving like rolling water, and she copied her movements, clumsy but earnest. When Liam signed, "Love you, Mom," his eyes bright. Evelyn's breath caught. She signed it back, her hands shaking, and Noah hugged her, his small arms tight around her waist. As they packed up, James shared a story about Sarah, how she'd loved signing poems under the stars in their small Oregon town. "She taught me that listening isn't just hearing," he said, his voice soft. "It's seeing someone's heart." Evelyn nodded, her throat tight. She'd spent years building walls around her grief, her sons, herself, but James's quiet presence was chipping away at them. She wasn't ready to admit it, not yet, but as she drove home with Liam and Noah signing in the back seat, she felt something shift. For the first time, she wasn't just their CEO mother, the woman who paid for tutors and planned their futures. She was learning to be their listener, their guide, and maybe, just maybe, their sunshine. The auditorium of the Rose City Community Center buzzed with anticipation, its high ceilings strung with fairy lights that twinkled like stars against the polished wood beams. Portland's early winter chill pressed against the windows, but inside the air was warm with the chatter of families, the rustle of programs, and the hum of excitement for the annual community talent show. Evelyn Carter stood at the back, her tailored gray coat draped over her arm, her hazel eyes scanning the crowded room. At 37, she was a fixture in Portland's tech scene, the unyielding CEO of Pinnacle Tech. But tonight, she felt a different weight, not of boardroom expectations, but of her son's eager anticipation. Liam and Noah, her 7-year-old deaf twins, were somewhere backstage preparing to perform with James Sullivan, the community center's custodian, who'd become an unexpected anchor in their lives. Evelyn's fingers brushed the program in her hand, the paper listing Liam and Noah Carter with James Sullivan's signed poem as the next act. Her heart thudded a mix of pride and nerves. She'd spent the last month learning to sign with her boys, her once clumsy hands growing steadier under their patient guidance. But tonight was different. Tonight they'd share something with the world, and she wasn't sure she was ready to witness it. The stage lights dimmed, and the crowd hushed as Liam and Noah bounded out their matching navy sweaters, slightly askew, their faces bright with nervous excitement. James followed his gray custodian's uniform, replaced with a simple black shirt and jeans, his salt and pepper hair neat under a fresh cap. He gave the boys a reassuring nod, his hands signing, "You've got this," with a calm that steadied their jittery energy. Evelyn clutched the program tighter, her nails leaving faint creases. She'd seen them rehearse at home in the sleek living room of her Portland penthouse, but this was public raw, a moment she couldn't control. The music began a soft piano rendition of "You Are My Sunshine," the same song James had taught them in the park weeks ago. Liam and Noah's hands moved in unison, their small fingers shaping each word with care. "You are my sunshine." James joined them, his signs slower, deliberate, guiding them through the rhythm. The audience, a mix of parents, teachers, and community members, watched in rapt silence, some signing along. Others simply captivated by the boys' expressive faces. Evelyn's throat tightened as she watched her sons. Their movements weren't flawless. Liam's happy was a bit rushed. Noah's please slightly off, but their joy was undeniable, their silent voices ringing clear. She remembered the years after Mark's death, when she'd buried her grief in work, leaving Liam and Noah to drift in a world of tutors and schedules. She'd thought money could bridge the gap, that elite programs and expensive instructors could give them what she couldn't. But James, with his calloused hands and quiet patience, had shown her otherwise. He'd taught them signs for dinosaur and rocket, yes, but more than that, he'd taught them they were seen, heard, valued. Evelyn's eyes stung as the trio reached the song's final line, their hands shaping, "You'll never know how much I love you," with a tenderness that pierced her. The crowd erupted in applause, some standing, others wiping tears. Liam and Noah beamed, signing "Thank you" as James stepped back, giving them the spotlight. Evelyn moved through the crowd, her heels clicking softly, and slipped backstage. The boys ran to her, their arms wrapping around her waist, their hands signing, "Did you see?" And "We did it!" She knelt her silk blouse, brushing the dusty floor, and signed back, "You were amazing." Her fingers were steadier now, the signs flowing more naturally after weeks of practice. James stood nearby, his hands in his pockets, his smile faint but warm. "They worked hard," he said, signing as he spoke. "They wanted it to be perfect for you. Evelyn's chest ached. She stood brushing a stray lock of hair from Noah's forehead and faced James. "You've changed them," she said, her voice low, raw. "You've changed us." The words felt like a confession, a crack in the armor she'd worn as Pinnacle Tech's untouchable CEO. James shook his head, his eyes steady. "I just gave them what they needed, someone to listen. You're doing that now, Miss Carter. That's what matters." The moment lingered heavy with unspoken gratitude until the stage manager called for the next act. Evelyn took the boys' hands, leading them to the auditorium's foyer, where families mingled over cookies and punch. She spotted Maria, their nanny, chatting with a teacher and waved her over to watch the boys. Then on impulse, she turned to James. "Can we talk?" she asked, gesturing toward a quiet corner. He nodded, following her to a bench near the community center's mural-covered wall, its vibrant colors a stark contrast to the gray November evening outside. Evelyn sat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I looked into your file again," she said, her voice steady but soft. "No mention of your sister, no record of your skills. Why didn't you tell anyone?" James leaned back, his expression thoughtful. "Didn't think it mattered for cleaning floors," he said. "And honestly, I didn't think anyone would care. My job's to keep things running, not to make waves." Evelyn's jaw tightened, his words echoing her own blind spots. "I thought I was doing enough," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "The tutors, the programs, the money. I thought that was enough for them." She glanced at Liam and Noah, now signing animatedly with a group of kids near the refreshment table. "But they needed me, and I wasn't there. Not the way you were." James's eyes softened, but he didn't interrupt. "My sister Sarah," he said. After a moment, she used to say, "The best gift you can give someone is your time. Not money, not things just showing up, really. Seeing them. That's what I try to do, whether it's for the kids here or the floors I clean." His words cut through Evelyn like a blade, simple yet profound. She'd built an empire, but she'd forgotten how to give her sons the one thing they craved: her presence. The next week, Evelyn made a decision that surprised even herself. She called a meeting with the community center's director and proposed funding a weekly sign language class led by James. "He's a natural teacher," she told the director, her voice firm but warm. "Let's give him the space to do it right." The director agreed, and by the following Saturday, the art room was filled with kids and parents, James at the front, signing hello and friend with his easy smile. Liam and Noah sat in the front row, their hands flying as they helped demonstrate. Evelyn joined them, her signs still hesitant, but earnest, earning grins from her sons. She'd canceled a board meeting to be there, a choice that would have been unthinkable a month ago. Her phone stayed silent in her purse, the world of Pinnacle Tech momentarily on hold. At home that evening, in the warm glow of their penthouse kitchen, Evelyn sat with Liam and Noah at the counter, a plate of half-eaten cookies between them. They were teaching her the sign for family, their small hands guiding hers. Like this. Mom Liam signed his fingers, shaping the word with care. Noah added, "You're better now." Evelyn laughed, her heart lighter than it had been in years. She signed family back, her movements slow but clear, and the boys clapped their silent cheers, filling the room. Later, as they slept, Evelyn stood in their doorway, watching their chests rise and fall. She thought of James's words, really seeing them. She'd spent years chasing success to honor Mark's memory, but she'd forgotten to honor his love for their sons. That changed now. The lesson was clear not just for her, but for anyone listening. True connection comes from presence, from listening with your heart, not your wallet. Titles, money, power, they faded against the quiet strength of showing up. Evelyn wasn't just a CEO anymore. She was a mother, learning to speak her son's language to see their world. And as she turned off the kitchen light, the city sparkling beyond the windows, she knew this was the legacy that mattered. One built on love, not contracts. The Hayes Mansion. No, the Carter home felt alive again. Its silence no longer empty, but rich with possibility. A testament to the gift of presence that James, a humble custodian, had given them all.